Hi, this is John L. Sullivan for UDL Technology. This is Chapter 3, Projecting with a Tablet. Now, most people who project onto a whiteboard with a tablet are going to be using an iPad. So I'm focusing mostly on that, but I've also focused on other types of tablets. If you're going to project with them, you can as well. One of the things I think about is that projecting with an iPad, in a lot of ways, it's going to give you more features than the interactive whiteboards. Now, the interactive whiteboards, a lot of them are very expensive, and the technology's been around for a while, and they're very good, and no one's going to take them down. They're still going to be used, and they are being used, and they are very good. But with an iPad, you have more control of what's going on, and there's more things that you can do when you project with it, because you're walking around with a tablet, and you're controlling the whiteboard with a tablet in your hand, opposed to going up to the board and turning your back and clicking on it. It's a little more seamless, and it's a little more practical because you can walk around the class and go physically anywhere in the class where you need to go and be at that moment. So there's certainly some advantages. So some of the things I point out in the book are different ways you can project with an iPad. I'm just surprised that we don't see this more often, because an Apple TV is usually like $100. And then an iPad, if you buy them in bulk, you're talking a couple $100 if you're not buying the absolute newest one. So they're relatively inexpensive. So say $300 for the iPad and $100 for the Apple TV, it's $400, and all of a sudden you have this amazing interactive feature that you can do with your projector. And there's a couple really cool things you can do right off the bat. Anything that's visual, that's an app, like for instance, the mobile education store, they have a lot of apps on grammar, and they give interactive examples, and you could project that on the board. You could do some of that with your students. They have some apps for biology, the human body, that show all this different type of stuff in a model. And you can point out the different organs in the body and how they work, in a very highly interactive way, just by projecting the app onto the board. Very, very simple, very, very quick. Immediately you do something very techy, and you've introduced something to the classroom that's very powerful. It's very time equitable. You don't put a lot of time into it. Once you get the AirPlay to work and it's set up correctly, you click on it, it works, and you can do some really cool things. One of the things that I've done in the past with teachers is have them take pictures or short video clips if the students are working on a project, and you could do that at the end of class for an assessment. I've had teachers do that where they'll take pictures of a couple of students working on projects, and then they'll go to either the tablet, or I should say iPad, or even like an iPhone, and they just swipe across, and then on the board you see one picture, then another picture, or even a short video of maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and then the students could talk about and explain what they were doing there. It's a really good way to get people's attention to focus on something. For some reason, when people see video or picture on the board, they're more interested in that than they are person-to-person contact, and it shouldn't be that way. Obviously, talking face-to-face with a human being should be more interesting than a YouTube video, but apparently it doesn't necessarily work that way. But you have to go with whatever works. And one of the good things you can do with this, actually, with an iPad, is you can record yourself taking directions. A teacher who's working with small parts that I work with, and the person would give directions, and the part's this big, and the person's in the back of the room. Can they really see what you're doing with it? But if you videotape it, it's enlarged, it's on the screen, it's big, they can see it up close. And this works well whether it's a science teacher working on something that's an experiment right directly in front of them, or an engineering teacher putting parts, but anything that you could have parts being put together and giving directions. It's a good thing to do. You can videotape the directions, and then you could AirPlay them on the board, and you could give the directions once and AirPlay it, 4 or 5 times, how many times you have the class. And while your students are getting the direction, you can 100% be focused on watching them, making sure that they're fully focused and engaged in the process. And at the same time, if a student comes in late, you can hit play and they could watch the directions. So it also makes it good where you can actually stop the directions and explain something and point something out. So with a simple iPad, videotaping yourself working on something physically in front of you and giving directions, I found that to be a very effective use of AirPlay, or taking the pictures and swiping your finger. So there are a number of things you can do. Even simply just clicking on and playing a video, having a video already set up, and just you click on it and it plays. And you do it from across the room. Something making a simple process like that a little more seamless gives you an advantage. So there are a number of different things that you could do. We think we went over some of these. We're using the whiteboard apps, and is one way to do it. You can have students airplay their work onto the board. If they each did a project on an app, they could each airplay it onto the board. One student at a time. First student goes, second student goes. And one of the most rewarding things to do when you do a project with a class is have everybody talk about the project, or it's something where it's a video or a slideshow where it does some of that for them. That's great too. So if a student makes a video, they can airplay the video and get some positive attention for that. Or if it's a presentation, obviously they could airplay the presentation, then they would have to talk about it as well. So there are many different things you can do with projecting an iPad that are effective, time equitable, and will have immediate impact on your class. So it's something I highly recommend, and it's something I think will eventually be bigger than interactive whiteboards. Obviously it'll take time because it's new, but it takes a while for people to understand the technology, then figure out how to apply it to their specific curriculum. And I'd recommend that you find apps, use the whiteboard, and if you can take a picture or show a video clip and airplay it, very powerful thing to do. So these are different ways to project. The standard of projecting right now is Apple TV. That's what most districts are using. They're not that expensive. It's a good way to do it. There are a number of different software programs to do the same thing, but you can't just load the software program. If you have a network manager and IT department, they're going to have to configure certain things, so just don't try to buy the software and load it yourself. I would tell you to go through someone in the technology department. But there are less expensive options as well. There are a number of software. We talk about Reflector 2 and AirPower 2. AirServe is another one. And there's a couple others that are listed here. Then there are physical things that you can connect. The different types of connectors, the iPad, VGA adapter. VGA is a type of adapter that goes to projector, and HDMI is another one. So those are physical connectors where you connect the iPad to the adapter. And these are the ones I list on it. But you can also project with other types of tablets as well. The Kindle Fire, you can actually project it. They have Amazon Fire TV, which is their version of Apple TV, or Roku. I would say Roku. It's Roku. You could use Amazon Fire TV to project with it. Just be like an Apple TV or another device where you can get your internet and your television, but it'll project a tablet as well. So then there's projecting with an Android. Now the Android, a lot of times it comes down to what type of a lot of times you physically plug it into something. What kind of adapter does it have? Does it have USB? Does it have what's called HDMI? I know these are ports. It's not interesting talking about ports, but it depends what you can plug into it. Just look at the type of connector, and that's how you decide what you can physically get. It is possible to AirPlay one of these. There's one projector that does it wirelessly through an app. The app's reviews are so-so, but it's kind of cool because that one projector you could project multiple devices and different types of devices. Which is something really in the future when you have people who have speakers who are traveling and you don't know what type of device they're going to have, and then you have to set it up very quickly right before they start talking, because I know I've done that a couple times. Having either a device or some way where you could project or use multiple devices with your projector, it's a huge advantage. It certainly helps a lot. Then there's also what I call reverse projecting. Reverse projecting is when you project the teacher screen onto the student device. So maybe you would project your computer onto their tablet or onto their computer if you had a classroom where it was a lab, and you could project your computer onto their computers or your computer onto their tablet. And there's a number of reasons to do this. One, you could have 25 students working on something and they're all looking at the exact same screen, and you're going to know if they're looking at the exact same screen. How often do you have a class with 25 students and you know every single one of those students is engaged in what you're doing and they're looking at exactly what you want them to look at? So that can be a really, really good experience. Join Me is the one I suggest if you need a lot of students to look at one time. There's a paid version, but there's a certain number that are free, so if it's only with one or two or with a small group, you can use that website, and it won't cost you anything. Nearpod's another one that's also used to be in my category for the student response systems, because you can get feedback from your students, but it is the same thing. You can make a presentation, you project it on the students' devices, and at times they can even answer questions and interact back with you. Conference Pad is another one. And that is chapter 3 for my book, UDL Technology, Technology for Universal Design and Learning and Special Education. This is John O'Sullivan. Thank you.